I returned from a 2-week business trip to Seattle to find my driveway empty and a sold sign planted in my front yard. My dream house, the Victorian I had spent 3 years renovating with my own hands and savings, was gone. Inside my childhood home, my father Harold grinned smugly while showing me photos on his phone of my brother Derek lounging on a yacht in the Caribbean. "Your house paid for their month-long honeymoon cruise," he announced. Derek deserved it after his hard year. I just smiled. His grin faltered. "What's so funny?" I set my suitcase down in the foyer of my parents' house and kept that same calm smile on my face. My mother Linda emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, avoiding eye contact. She looked guilty, which told me everything I needed to know about her role in this situation. "I'd like to see the sale documents," I said quietly, maintaining my composure despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Harold's chest puffed out with pride. He pulled a manila folder from the coffee table like he was presenting a trophy. "Right here. All legal and proper. Derek needed this opportunity, Cassandra. You have too much while your brother struggles." I opened the folder and felt my blood turn to ice. There was my signature on the sale agreement, but I had never signed this document. The handwriting was close, very close, but the small loop I always made in the "Ah" of Cassandra was missing. They had forged my signature. "This house sold for $280,000, I said, running my finger down the purchase agreement. "The market value is $420,000. You sold it for 60% of what it's worth." The buyer needed a quick sale. Linda finally spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. They paid cash. No waiting for financing or inspections. "How convenient for Derek," I replied, still studying the documents. "And how did you manage to sign these papers when I was in Seattle?" Harold's eyes narrowed. "You gave us power of attorney years ago when you bought the place. We were co-signers on the original mortgage, remember? That gave us the right to handle your affairs. Power of attorney for emergency medical decisions, not property sales," I corrected. "And I never signed anything giving you permission to sell my house." "Derek convinced us this was fair," Linda said, wringing the dish towel in her hands. "You have your successful consulting business, your nice cars, your savings. Derek lost his job 8 months ago. Amanda threatened to leave him unless he could provide the kind of life she deserves." I looked back at Harold. "So you decided to steal my life to save Derek's marriage?" "We decided to help our struggling son using resources our successful daughter could easily replace," Harold shot back. "Derek showed us the text messages from Amanda. She was going to divorce him if he couldn't take her on a proper honeymoon. A month-long Caribbean cruise with first-class flights and a luxury suite. She had friends bragging about their husbands' romantic gestures. Derek was humiliated. And where exactly did Derek get the idea to sell my house?" Harold pulled out his phone again, scrolling through messages. "Here. Look at this conversation from 3 weeks ago." He showed me a text thread between him and Derek. The timestamp showed they had been planning this entire scheme while I was working 16-hour days in Seattle, helping a startup company restructure their entire software infrastructure. Derek had written, "Cassie's house is just sitting there while she travels. She probably doesn't even think about it. Amanda found the perfect cruise, but it costs 40 grand. Plus, we need spending money for excursions and shopping. Maybe 60 total." Harold had responded, "Your sister has always had everything handed to her. College scholarship, good job offers. That house practically fell into her lap. Time she helped family. She won't even notice the money missing," Derek had replied. "Rich people just make more money. But if I lose Amanda, I lose everything." The conversation continued for dozens of messages, planning exactly how to time the sale, which documents they would need, and how to handle the legal aspects. This was not a desperate decision made in the heat of the moment. This was a calculated betrayal planned over weeks. "Derek deserved this help," Linda said, her voice getting stronger as she convinced herself. "We've watched him struggle while you succeeded effortlessly. It's time you shared your good fortune." I closed the folder and set it on the coffee table. "What else did you take?" Harold and Linda exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" Linda asked. My car isn't in the driveway either. My 1967 Mustang that I spent 2 years restoring. Where is it? Harold's grin returned. Derek needed extra cash for excursions and Amanda's shopping. That old car was just taking up space in your garage anyway. He sold it to a collector for $15,000. Nice contribution to their vacation fund. And my storage unit? The one with my grandmother's antiques? And my college memorabilia? Cleaned out last week, Harold said proudly. Derek found some valuable pieces in there. Amazing what people will pay for old furniture and vintage items. Another $8,000 for their trip. I stood up slowly, processing the magnitude of what they had done. In 2 weeks, while I was working to build my career and serve my clients, my own family had systematically dismantled my entire life. Everything I owned except the clothes in my suitcase was gone, converted into cash for Derek's luxury vacation. The money's already spent, Linda added, as if this would somehow comfort me. Derek and Amanda are having the most wonderful time. Amanda sent photos from their first-class flight. She looked so happy. Derek finally feels like he can provide for his wife the way a man should. I picked up my suitcase and headed toward the guest bedroom I had slept in as a child. Where are you going? Harold called after me. To make some phone calls. I replied, still wearing that same calm smile. But as I climbed the stairs, my mind was racing. They thought they had taken everything from me, but they had no idea what they had actually done. This was going to be much worse than they imagined. I closed the bedroom door and sat on the twin bed with its faded purple comforter, the same one I had used in high school. My hands were shaking as I dialed Derek's number. The phone rang 4 times before he answered, and I could hear steel drums and laughter in the background. Well, well, well. Derek's voice was slurred with alcohol and satisfaction. If it isn't my generous big sister. I heard you made it back from your little business trip. Derek, I need to understand what happened here. Mom and Dad sold my house and car while I was gone. He laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. They sure did. And let me tell you, this cruise is exactly what Amanda and I needed. We're in the presidential suite right now, drinking champagne that costs more than you probably spend on groceries in a month. Derek, that house was my home. I renovated it with my own hands. I sanded every floor, painted every wall, restored every piece of original trim. And now it's gone, he said cheerfully. Turned into something actually useful. You should see Amanda in her new bikini. Cost $800, but she looks like a movie star. She's finally proud to be married to me. I don't understand why you think this was acceptable. Acceptable? Derek's voice turned sharp. Let me tell you what's not acceptable, Cassandra. You walking around like you're better than everyone else. You with your college degree that Mom and Dad paid for, your fancy consulting business, your perfect little house that you bought because everything just falls into your lap. Derek, I paid my own way through college with scholarships and student loans. I worked 3 jobs to cover what the scholarships didn't pay for. Mom and Dad didn't give me a cent for education. That's not how I remember it, Derek snapped. I remember them bragging about their brilliant daughter who got a full ride while I was struggling in community college classes I couldn't afford to finish. Give me the phone. Amanda's voice came through clearly now. Let me talk to her. Amanda, Derek said. Meet my sister Cassandra. Cassandra, meet the woman who deserves to be treated like a queen. Amanda's voice was sickeningly sweet. Cassandra, I just want to thank you for finally being a good sister. Derek has told me so much about how you've always looked down on us, always acted like you were too good for this family. But this gesture, giving up your house so we could have our dream honeymoon, it really shows you're trying to change. Amanda, I didn't give anything. My parents stole my house and sold it without my permission. Amanda laughed. Oh, please, Derek explained everything. Your parents had legal authority to sell it, and they chose to help their son who actually needed help. You can just buy another house anytime you want. Rich people like you always figure it out. Derek took the phone back. Speaking of figuring things out, you might want to check your credit report soon, sis. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? Remember that family dinner 6 months ago when you left your purse in the kitchen while we all watched that movie? I found some interesting documents in there. Social security card, driver's license, bank statements. Amazing how much information people just carry around with them. Derek, what did you do? I did what any smart person would do with opportunity. I opened a few credit cards in your name. Nothing major. Just $45,000 across 5 different cards. Had to cover the cruise deposits, Amanda's new wardrobe for the trip, some jewelry to make her feel special. The kind of things a real man provides for his wife. I couldn't speak. The room was spinning around me. The best part, Derek continued, is that you authorized me as an account manager on all of them. Well, at least that's what the paperwork says. Turns out your signature is easier to copy than I thought. Harold's voice boomed in the background. He must have been listening on speakerphone. Derek's just evening the scales. Cassandra, you've had advantages your whole life. It's time you shared them with family. This is identity theft, I managed to say. This is federal crime. This is family helping family, Derek corrected. And before you get any ideas about lawyers or police, you should know that Mom and Dad completely support everything I've done. They think it's about time you contributed to this family instead of just taking from it. Amanda's voice returned. Derek, tell her about the other thing. Oh, right, Derek said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. The people who bought your house? They're friends of mine from high school, Tom and Sarah Mitchell. They bought it specifically to flip it, and I get 20% of the profit when they resell it. So really, your house is going to keep paying for our lifestyle for quite a while. This is insane, I whispered. This is justice, Derek replied. You know what's insane? Watching your brother struggle with unemployment while his sister jets around the country making more money in a month than he's seen all year. You know what's insane? Watching the woman you love lose respect for you because you can't provide the life she deserves while your sister lives in a house that's too big for one person. Derek, I offered to help you find work. I offered to write recommendations, to introduce you to contacts in tech companies that were hiring. I don't want your charity, Derek snarled. I wanted what was fair, and now I've taken it. Where does this end? I asked. It ends when you stop acting like the victim and start acting like a sister who cares about her brother's happiness, Amanda answered. Derek and I are going to have a beautiful life together, and you're going to be part of making that happen. Derek came back on the line. Actually, there's something else you should know. Tom and Sarah aren't just flipping your house. They're holding it for me. When we get back from the cruise, Amanda and I are going to buy it from them. I'm going to be living in your dream house, Cassandra. Every morning, I'll wake up in the bedroom you designed, cook breakfast in the kitchen you renovated, and sit on the porch you rebuilt with your own hands. And I'll think about how much better I'm using it than you ever did. The line went dead. I sat in the silence of my childhood bedroom, staring at the pink walls I had painted when I was 14 years old. Everything was gone. My house, my car, my savings, my credit, and now my brother was planning to live in my home while I was left with nothing. But as I sat there, processing the enormity of what Derek had done, I realized something important. He had just made a huge mistake. Several huge mistakes, actually, and he had no idea what he had just walked into. The next morning, I dressed in my best business suit and drove my parents' car to the office of Patricia Williams, the best attorney in town. Her secretary squeezed me in for an emergency consultation, and I spent 2 hours laying out everything that had happened. Patricia listened carefully, taking notes, occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair and sighed. Cassandra, I have to be honest with you. This case has some significant challenges. My heart sank. What kind of challenges? Your parents were on the deed as co-owners because they co-signed your original mortgage 7 years ago. That complicates the fraud claim substantially. While they clearly forged your signature on the sale documents, their legal ownership stake gives them some authority to make decisions about the property. But they sold it without my knowledge or consent. True, but they can argue they were acting in the family's best interest, and that you would have agreed to help your brother if you had been available to discuss it. It's morally wrong, absolutely, but legally gray. I felt sick. What about the identity theft? The credit cards Derek opened in my name? That's more promising, but still difficult. Family identity theft is notoriously hard to prosecute because the perpetrator often has legitimate access to documents and personal information. Derek's defense will be that you authorized him to help manage your finances. I never authorized anything. I believe you, but Derek has documentation suggesting otherwise. The credit card companies will side with him initially because they have paperwork showing you added him as an authorized user. But I never added him to anything. I know, but proving that in court requires substantial evidence of fraud, and that evidence might not be admissible if Derek's lawyer argues he had implied consent to handle family financial matters. Patricia pulled out another folder. I also need to tell you about some additional complications. While you were in here this morning, I had my assistant do some preliminary checking. It appears Derek has been intercepting your mail for several months through a fraudulent forwarding scheme. What does that mean? It means important business correspondence, legal notices, tax documents, and contract deadlines have been diverted to a post office box he controls. You've missed several critical business obligations because you never received the notifications. The room felt like it was closing in on me. What kind of obligations? 3 major clients have terminated contracts for non-performance. You apparently missed deadlines for project deliverables because Derek intercepted the correspondence. There are also tax notices from the IRS about discrepancies in your quarterly payments, and your business license renewal deadline passed without you knowing about it. My business license expired? Officially, as of last week, yes. You're no longer legally authorized to practice as an independent consultant in this state until you complete the renewal process and pay substantial penalties. I put my head in my hands. So Derek hasn't just stolen my personal assets. He's destroyed my professional life too. It gets worse, Patricia continued gently. The missed contract deadlines have triggered penalty clauses that make you liable for substantial damages. The Wellington Group is seeking $250,000 in compensation for project delays that cost them a major client. I was in Seattle working on the Morrison account. I had no idea about any Wellington Group deadlines, because Derek intercepted the communications. But from the Wellington Group's perspective, you simply vanished in the middle of a critical project phase. I looked up at Patricia. Can I fight this? We can try, but litigation is expensive. The consultation fee for this conversation is $400. A comprehensive defense against all these issues would require at least $50,000 in legal fees, possibly more. And that's just to begin the process. Derek emptied my bank accounts. I can't afford $50,000 in legal fees. Which brings us to another problem, Patricia said, consulting her notes. The credit damage Derek inflicted makes it nearly impossible for you to secure loans or financing. No bank will lend money to someone with maxed out credit cards and missed payments. I stared out the window at the parking lot where my parents' car Saturday. So Derek has effectively trapped me. I can't afford to fight him legally. I can't rebuild my business without my license, and I can't get credit to start over. Essentially, yes. He's created a comprehensive financial stranglehold. There has to be something I can do. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. There might be one avenue, but it's risky and would require proving Derek's actions were part of a larger criminal conspiracy. If we could demonstrate that the mail interception, identity theft, and property fraud were coordinated elements of an ongoing scheme to destroy your livelihood, federal prosecutors might be interested. What would that require? Evidence that Derek planned this systematically over time, not just impulsive theft, documentation of the mail forwarding scheme, proof that the credit card fraud was intentional rather than family financial assistance, and ideally, evidence that other people were involved in the conspiracy. Like Tom and Sarah Mitchell buying my house as part of Derek's plan? Exactly. If we can prove they knew the house was stolen and participated in the scheme for profit, that transforms this from family drama into organized fraud. I stood up, feeling a spark of hope for the first time since returning from Seattle. How do we get that evidence? Patricia smiled for the first time during our meeting, very carefully, and with a lot of patience. But first, we need to deal with your immediate crisis. Where are you staying tonight? My parents' house, I guess. I wouldn't recommend that. If Derek is monitoring your communications and has convinced your parents to support his actions, Staying there gives him continued access to your personal information and makes you vulnerable to further manipulation. I can't afford a hotel without credit cards or bank access. Let me make some calls. I know a women's shelter that helps victims of family financial abuse. It's not luxury accommodations, but it's safe and confidential while we figure out next steps. As I left Patricia's office, I realized Derek had been more thorough in his destruction than I initially understood. This wasn't just theft. It was a systematic dismantling of my entire ability to function independently. He had trapped me in a maze of legal problems with no apparent way out. But Derek had made one critical error. He had underestimated exactly who he was dealing with, and that mistake was going to cost him everything. 3 days later, I was sitting in a cramped room at the women's shelter, trying to rebuild my life from nothing, when my phone rang. Aunt Margaret's name appeared on the screen. I answered hopefully, thinking maybe someone in my extended family would offer support. "Cassandra Lynn Mitchell," she began, using my full name the way she did when I was in trouble as a child. "I just got off the phone with your mother, and I am appalled by your behavior." My heart sank. "Aunt Margaret, did Mom tell you what Derek did?" She told me that Derek asked the family for help during a difficult time in his marriage, and instead of being grateful that your parents found a way to assist him, you're threatening lawsuits and trying to destroy your own brother. Derek stole my house, my car, and opened credit cards in my name. He's committed multiple felonies. Derek asked for help, and your parents helped him using assets they had legal authority to access. You're being vindictive and selfish, just like your mother said. Legal authority? They forged my signature. Your parents co-signed your mortgage, which gives them ownership rights. Derek explained the whole situation to Uncle Paul and me yesterday. You've been financially irresponsible, living beyond your means, and when your brother needed emergency assistance, you refused to help. Your parents had to step in to prevent Derek's marriage from falling apart. I sat up straighter. That's completely untrue. Derek never asked me for help, and I was out of state on business when they sold my house. Derek says he tried to reach you multiple times, but you were too busy with your important clients to take his calls. He was desperate, Cassandra. Amanda was going to leave him if he couldn't provide a decent honeymoon. What kind of sister ignores her brother's crisis? The kind of sister who never received those calls because Derek was intercepting my communications. Aunt Margaret's voice turned cold. That's a very serious accusation to make without proof. Uncle Paul and I raised 4 children, and we never saw this level of sibling resentment. Derek showed us text messages where he begged you for help and you ignored him. He forged those messages, or you deleted the real ones to cover up your selfishness. Either way, Uncle Paul and I have decided we don't want to be involved in this family drama. We won't be taking sides. But we also won't be seeing you until you resolve this situation with Derek and apologize to your parents. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, realizing Derek had been busier during his cruise than just lounging on the deck. He had been systematically poisoning my relationships with everyone who might support me. Over the next 2 days, the calls kept coming. Cousin Jennifer, who I had been close to since childhood, left a voicemail saying she was disappointed in my selfishness. Cousin Mark blocked me on social media after posting a long message about family loyalty and supporting siblings in crisis. Even my grandmother Dorothy, the family matriarch who had always been my strongest supporter, called to express her shame at my vindictive pursuit of Derek. "That boy has suffered enough with unemployment and marriage troubles," Grandmother Dorothy said during our painful phone conversation. "Now you want to put him in prison because he asked family for help? I raised you better than that, Cassandra." "Grandma, Derek didn't ask for help. He stole from me. He asked your parents for help, and they helped him. That's what families do. If you can't understand that, then maybe you need to spend some time thinking about what family really means." By Friday, my social media feeds were filled with photos from Derek and Amanda's cruise. They were tagged in posts by family members praising their well-deserved vacation and commenting about how beautiful they looked together and how Derek finally found happiness. Amanda had posted dozens of pictures of herself in designer clothes with captions like, "When your husband treats you like a queen," and "Living our best life thanks to family support." That evening, Harold called me directly. "I hope you're happy," he said without preamble. Derek called from the ship crying because Aunt Margaret told him you're planning to have him arrested when he gets back from his honeymoon. Derek should be worried about arrest. He's committed serious crimes. Derek made a mistake with those credit cards, and he's willing to work out a payment plan when he gets back. But this vindictive legal action has to stop. You're tearing this family apart. Derek tore this family apart when he decided to destroy my life for vacation money. Derek asked for help and got refused, so he found another way. If you had been a decent sister in the first place, none of this would have happened. When did Derek ask me for help, Dad? Show me the messages. He sent you dozens of texts over the past few months, talking about his struggles with unemployment and his marriage problems. You never responded with offers to help, because I never received any of those texts. Derek was intercepting my mail and probably spoofing my phone number to send fake conversations. You're paranoid, Cassandra, and you're selfish. Derek is your only brother, and he needed support during the hardest period of his life. Instead of helping him, you're trying to destroy him. Where are my belongings from storage, Dad? My grandmother's antiques? My college memorabilia? My photo albums? Harold was quiet for a moment. Derek needed to liquidate some assets quickly to cover unexpected cruise expenses. You mean he sold my dead grandmother's rocking chair and my college diplomas for spending money? He sold items that were just taking up space to create experiences and memories with his wife. Which is more important, Cassandra? Old furniture gathering dust, or a young couple building their marriage? Those weren't Derek's items to sell. They were my inheritance from Grandma Mitchell. They were items taking up space in storage, while Derek struggled to provide for his wife. Everything you owned was just sitting unused while your brother suffered. We redistributed family resources to where they were needed most. I ended the call and sat in silence. Derek hadn't just stolen my possessions and finances. He had successfully convinced my entire extended family that I was the villain in this situation. Every relationship I valued had been poisoned by his lies. But the worst was yet to come. On Saturday, I received a text from Derek with a photo attachment. It showed him and Amanda standing in front of my house, holding a sold sign. The caption read, "Bought back our dream home. Sometimes things work out exactly how they're supposed to. Thanks for everything, sis." He was moving into my house. The house I had rebuilt with my own hands was going to become his marital home with Amanda. Every morning they would wake up in the bedroom I had designed. Every evening they would sit on the porch I had restored. They would host family gatherings in the dining room where I had refinished the original hardwood floors. And everyone in my family would think this was justice. I put my phone down and made a decision. Derek thought he had won completely, but he had no idea what he was walking into. He was about to learn that some victories are actually carefully constructed traps. My business officially collapsed on a Tuesday morning in November. I was sitting in the shelter's common area, trying to work on my laptop using their slow internet connection, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Wellington Group, one of my largest clients. "Cassandra, this is Mark Stevens from Wellington Group Legal Department. I'm calling to inform you that we're filing a breach of contract lawsuit seeking $400,000 in damages for the Morrison project failure." My blood turned to ice. "Mark, I completed the Morrison project on time. I delivered all the specifications exactly as contracted. According to our records, you missed 3 critical milestone deadlines and failed to attend 2 mandatory progress meetings. Our client terminated their contract with us specifically because of these delays, costing us their account and substantial future revenue. I was never notified of additional meetings or revised deadlines. We sent notifications to your business address and mailed certified letters to your home address. When you didn't respond, we called your emergency contact number. Derek Mitchell answered and told us you were dealing with a family crisis and couldn't be reached." Derek. He had been intercepting my business communications and sabotaging my client relationships while positioning himself as my emergency contact. "Mark, Derek isn't my emergency contact. He's my brother, and he's been intercepting my communications without authorization." "That's a serious allegation, Cassandra. Derek told us he was handling your business affairs while you dealt with a mental health crisis. He seemed very concerned about your well-being. Derek has been committing mail fraud and identity theft. He's not managing my business affairs. He's destroying them deliberately. Whether or not that's true, you're still liable for the contract violations. We've already filed the lawsuit. You have 30 days to respond with legal representation. After hanging up, I called 3 other major clients. The same story repeated each time. Derek had contacted them claiming to be my business manager, explaining that I was dealing with personal problems that were affecting my work quality. He had apologized for my unreliable behavior and suggested they might want to consider other consultants for future projects. One client, Sarah Chen from Digital Dynamics, was particularly blunt. "Cassandra, your brother seemed really worried about you. He said you've been struggling with stress and making poor decisions. When you missed our deadline last month, he called to explain that you were having emotional problems related to overwork. We felt bad for you, but we can't work with unreliable contractors." What deadline did I miss? The security audit report for the Harrison account. It was due October 15th. But Derek said you were too overwhelmed to complete it on time. I checked my calendar. October 15th was while I was in Seattle working on the Morrison project. I had never even received a request for a Harrison account security audit. "Sarah, I never received a contract or deadline notification for any Harrison account work. We sent everything to your business address." Derek confirmed receipt when we called to check on the project status. Derek had been intercepting contracts, accepting work on my behalf, and then sabotaging the projects to destroy my professional reputation. Client by client, relationship by relationship, he was systematically dismantling my career while appearing to be a concerned brother worried about my mental health. That afternoon, I received a call from the state licensing board. "Miss Mitchell, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Professional Licensing Division. We've received several complaints about your business practices and want to schedule a formal review of your consulting license." "What kind of complaints?" "We've received reports that you've been operating without proper liability insurance, missed critical project deadlines resulting in client financial losses, and may be experiencing mental health issues that affect your professional judgment." "Who filed these complaints?" "The complaints are anonymous, but they include detailed documentation of missed deadlines and client statements about unreliable service." "Derek. He was filing false complaints with my licensing board using information he had gathered by intercepting my business communications." "When is the review scheduled?" "Next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Failure to attend will result in immediate license suspension pending further investigation." After that call, I sat in my cramped shelter room and took stock of the complete devastation. My house was gone. My car was gone. My savings and credit were destroyed. My family had disowned me. My business clients had terminated contracts and were suing me for damages. My professional license was under investigation. I was living in a shelter with no income, no assets, and no support system. But that evening, Derek called with news that made everything infinitely worse. "Hope you're enjoying your new living situation," he said cheerfully. "Amanda and I move into our new house next weekend. Your old house, I mean. Our house now." "Derek, you've destroyed my entire life. Are you satisfied now?" "Satisfied?" "Cassandra, I'm just getting started. You see, this was never about the money or the house. This was about justice." "Justice for what?" "Justice for 20 years of being the disappointment while you were the golden child. Justice for watching you succeed effortlessly while I struggled. Justice for being treated like I was less important than my perfect sister." "Derek, that's not how things were." "That's exactly how things were. But here's the beautiful part, Cassie. I didn't just take your house and your money. I've been planning this for over 2 years, systematically sabotaging your business relationships, spreading rumors about your mental health, positioning myself as the responsible sibling who has to clean up your messes." My hands were shaking. 2 years? 2 years of carefully planted seeds. Remember when you got that big contract with Morrison Industries 18 months ago? I called them pretending to be a concerned former client, expressing worry about your reliability under pressure. Planted just enough doubt to make them watch for problems. You've been sabotaging my career for 2 years? I've been evening the scales for 2 years. Every success you had, every contract you won, Every time Mom and Dad bragged about their successful daughter while I was unemployed, I made a note, and I planned how to take it all away. Why now? Why this elaborate plan with the cruise and the house? Derek's voice turned darker. Because Amanda gave me an ultimatum 6 months ago. She said if I couldn't provide the lifestyle she deserved by our second wedding anniversary, she was leaving me. I needed money fast, and I needed to prove I could be successful like my sister. So you decided to steal my success instead of earning your own. I decided to redistribute family resources more fairly, and the bonus is that now everyone in the family understands who you really are. Selfish, vindictive, ungrateful. The golden child who won't help her struggling brother. Derek, you've committed federal crimes. The FBI investigates mail fraud and organized identity theft. Derek laughed. Good luck proving anything. Every document has been carefully handled. Every conversation with family members has been recorded. Every business contact believes you're having a mental breakdown. Who's going to believe you over the concerned brother trying to help his unstable sister? The evidence will speak for itself. What evidence? The forged signatures that look exactly like your handwriting? The credit cards that have documentation showing you added me as an authorized user? The business contracts that were delivered to your legal address and ignored? Face it, Cassie. You can't prove anything. You can't afford lawyers. And you have no credibility left with anyone who matters. I hung up the phone and realized Derek was right. He had constructed an almost perfect frame job. Every piece of evidence pointed to me being an irresponsible business owner having a breakdown while my concerned family tried to help. Every relationship I valued had been systematically poisoned with lies that contained just enough truth to be believable. But Derek had made one critical mistake in his gloating confession. He had just admitted this was a planned conspiracy spanning 2 years, and he had done it over a phone line I was recording. Grandmother Dorothy's stroke happened on a Thursday morning in early December. I got the call while sitting in a coffee shop, filling out job applications for minimum wage positions since my consulting license was suspended pending investigation. Cassandra, this is your mother. Grandmother Dorothy collapsed this morning and is in intensive care at St. Mary's Hospital. The doctors say she had a massive stroke. My heart broke. Grandmother Dorothy had been my anchor through childhood, the one person who always believed in me unconditionally. Is she conscious? Can she speak? She's unconscious and on life support. The doctors aren't optimistic about recovery. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Actually, Cassandra, the family has decided it would be better if you didn't come to the hospital right now. I stopped walking. What do you mean? Derek and Amanda flew back early from their cruise when they heard about Grandma's condition. They're here with your father and me, and we feel your presence would be too upsetting given the current family tensions. You're banning me from seeing my own grandmother? We're protecting Grandma from additional stress. Derek explained how you've been harassing him with false accusations and threatening legal action. If Grandma wakes up and sees this family conflict, it could worsen her condition. Mom, Grandma doesn't even know about any family conflict. She knows you've been trying to have Derek arrested for helping his brother. Uncle Paul told her all about your vindictive behavior. Grandma was very disappointed in you before her stroke. I felt like I was drowning. Can I at least call the hospital to check on her condition? Derek has been designated as the family spokesperson with the medical staff. All information requests should go through him. 3 days later, Grandmother Dorothy died without regaining consciousness. I wasn't allowed at her bedside when she passed, and I learned about her death from a Facebook post by cousin Jennifer. The funeral was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I called the funeral home to confirm the details and was told that the family had requested a private service for immediate family only. When I protested that I was immediate family, the funeral director apologetically explained that Derek Mitchell had specifically instructed them not to admit me to the service. I'm her granddaughter, I said, barely controlling my tears. I understand, ma'am, but Mr. Derek Mitchell has legal authority as the family representative, and he's concerned about preventing family disputes during this difficult time. I drove to the funeral home anyway and sat in my parents' car in the parking lot, watching as my entire extended family filed into the building. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, all gathering to mourn the woman who had been like a second mother to me. Derek stood at the entrance in a black suit. greeting mourners and accepting condolences, playing the role of the devoted grandson. After the service, people lingered in the parking lot, sharing memories and offering support to the family. I watched from a distance as Derek received hugs and sympathy from relatives who had once loved me. He had successfully positioned himself as the responsible grandson dealing with family tragedy while managing his difficult sister's mental health crisis. That evening, Derek called me one final time. "Sorry you missed Grandma's funeral," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "It was beautiful. Everyone shared stories about what an amazing woman she was. I gave a eulogy about how she taught us the importance of family loyalty and supporting each other through difficult times. You prevented me from saying goodbye to my own grandmother. I protected the family from your disruptive presence. Grandma died peacefully, surrounded by people who loved her, without having to see the granddaughter who brought shame to the family name. Derek, you know Grandma would be horrified by what you've done to me. Actually, before her stroke, Grandma called me specifically to discuss your behavior. She was very concerned about your mental state and your vindictive pursuit of legal action against family. She asked me to look after you and try to get you the help you need." "That's a lie." "Is it?" "Grandma changed her will 3 months ago, Cassandra. She left everything to me. The house, the investments, the family jewelry, everything. She specifically wrote that she was concerned about your judgment and wanted to ensure family assets went to someone who would use them responsibly. My world collapsed completely. Grandmother Dorothy's house had been my sanctuary as a child. Her estate included the family farm that had been in our family for 4 generations, plus substantial investments and savings. I had always assumed I would inherit at least part of it, enough to rebuild my life. She wouldn't have done that without talking to me. She tried to talk to you, but you were always too busy with your important consulting business to visit. Derek and Amanda visited her every Sunday after church. We helped her with grocery shopping and household maintenance. We were the family she could count on while you pursued your career. I visited Grandma regularly until this crisis started. You visited when it was convenient for you. Derek and I were there when she needed us. We earned her trust and her inheritance. Derek, this is evil. You've taken everything from me. I've taken what was rightfully mine to begin with. The house you lived in, the career opportunities you had, the family respect you enjoyed, it should all have been shared with your brother. Instead, you hoarded everything while I struggled. Where does this end? What more can you possibly take from me?" Derek's voice became cold and calculating. "It ends when you disappear, Cassandra. When you move far away and stop embarrassing this family with your accusations and your mental instability. Mom and Dad are changing their wills too. Everything goes to me and Amanda now. You'll get nothing when they die, because you've convinced them I'm mentally unstable. Because you are mentally unstable. Look at your life. You're living in a homeless shelter. You've lost your business. Your credit is destroyed. You have no friends or family support. And you're pursuing delusional legal theories about conspiracies and fraud. Those are all signs of serious mental illness. You systematically destroyed my life and then used the damage as proof of mental illness. I systematically revealed your true character, and the family responded appropriately. You never deserved the success you had, Cassandra. You never earned the respect you received. And now that everyone sees who you really are, you'll never get any of it back." Derek hung up, and I sat in my shelter room staring at the wall. He was right about everything. I had no money, no home, no family, no business, and no way to prove his conspiracy. Everyone who had ever mattered in my life believed I was having a mental breakdown and that Derek was the victim of my vindictive behavior. But Derek had made one final mistake. In his arrogance and cruelty, he had forgotten something crucial about Grandmother Dorothy. She had been a smart woman who understood family dynamics better than anyone, and she had been watching Derek much more carefully than he realized. I waited until spring to reveal the truth. 6 months of living quietly, working minimum wage jobs, staying out of sight while Derek and Amanda enjoyed their victory. They moved into my house and hosted family gatherings, posted social media photos of their perfect life, and basked in the sympathy and support of our extended family. Derek thought he had won completely. He had no idea that Grandmother Dorothy had called me 2 weeks before her stroke. "Cassandra," she had said during that final conversation, "I'm very worried about Derek's behavior. He's been asking detailed questions about my will and my financial accounts. Amanda has been pressuring me to change my estate planning to be more fair to Derek since you've been so successful." "What kind of questions, Grandma?" "He wants to know exactly how much money I have saved, which bank accounts, whether I have life insurance policies. Amanda suggested I should leave everything to Derek since you don't need inheritance money. But something feels wrong about their sudden interest in spending time with me. Have you changed your will?" "I made some changes, but not the ones Derek expects. I've been watching his behavior very carefully, Cassandra. The way he talks about you when he thinks I'm not listening, the resentment in his voice, the sense of entitlement. I think Derek is planning something that will hurt you." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think Derek sees my death as an opportunity to inherit money he plans to use against you somehow. So I made arrangements to protect you." That conversation had been recorded on Grandmother Dorothy's old answering machine, which she always used to screen calls. She had saved the tape and hidden it in her bedroom jewelry box with a note instructing her lawyer to give it to me after her funeral. 2 weeks later, Derek received a call from Grandmother Dorothy's attorney requesting a meeting about estate settlement. He arrived at the law office expecting to claim his inheritance and found me sitting across from the conference table with Patricia Williams, FBI agent Sarah Chen, and Assistant District Attorney Mark Rodriguez. Derek's face went white when he saw the assembled group, but he maintained his composure. "What's this about? I thought we were here to discuss Grandma's will." "We are," said Dorothy's attorney, Mr. Harrison. "But there are some complications we need to address first." Agent Chen opened a thick folder. "Derek Mitchell, you're under arrest for mail fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes." She began reading his Miranda rights while Derek stared in shock. "This is insane," Derek protested. "Cassandra, what lies have you told them?" "Actually," I said calmly, "I haven't told them anything. You told them everything yourself." Agent Chen played the recording of Derek's confession call from December, where he detailed his 2-year plan to systematically destroy my life and business. Every word of his gloating admission was clearly audible, including his description of intercepting mail, forging signatures, and coordinating with others to defraud me. "That conversation was recorded without my consent," Derek said frantically. "Actually," Agent Chen replied, "federal law allows recording when someone is confessing to crimes against the person doing the recording. And this recording prompted a federal investigation that uncovered substantial additional evidence." Patricia Williams opened her own folder. "Derek, we've been tracking your activities for 4 months. Federal investigators traced the mail forwarding scheme, analyzed the forged signatures, documented the credit card fraud, and interviewed your co-conspirators." "What co-conspirators?" "Tom and Sarah Mitchell, your friends who bought Cassandra's house with advance knowledge it was stolen property. They've agreed to cooperate with federal prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges." Derek's face turned gray. "They wouldn't do that." "They already did," said Assistant District Attorney Rodriguez. "They've provided detailed statements about how you recruited them to purchase the house, hold it temporarily, and then transfer it to you for below-market value. They've also admitted to paying you 20% of their planned profit from the eventual resale." Agent Chen pulled out additional documents. "We've also interviewed Amanda about her role in the conspiracy. She's provided information about the credit card fraud and the cruise expenses in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Amanda wouldn't cooperate with you. Amanda learned that mail fraud and identity theft are federal felonies with mandatory minimum sentences. She decided protecting herself was more important than protecting you." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where Derek had parked my renovated Mustang. "Derek, there's something else you need to know about Grandmother Dorothy's will." Mr. Harrison opened the official will documents. Dorothy Mitchell left her entire estate to Cassandra, with specific instructions that Derek receive nothing due to his demonstrated lack of moral character and criminal behavior toward family members. Derek's mouth fell open. "That's impossible. She changed her will to leave everything to me." "She changed her will to make you think everything was going to you," I corrected. "But she filed a different will with her attorney. one that specifically disinherits you and details her concerns about your criminal plans. Mr. Harrison read from Dorothy's final will. I leave my entire estate to my granddaughter Cassandra, who has always demonstrated integrity, hard work, and genuine love for family. I specifically exclude my grandson Derek, who has shown disturbing patterns of entitlement, resentment, and what I believe to be criminal intent toward his sister. There's more, I said, turning back to face Derek. The house you've been living in for 6 months isn't actually my house. Derek stared at me in confusion. What do you mean? I mean, the house you orchestrated stealing was a rental property I was using as a decoy while I renovated my actual house in North Carolina. When I discovered your mail interception schemes 6 months before your theft, I fed you false information to see what you would do with it. Agent Chen smiled. The dream house Derek stole has foundation problems, toxic mold, and unpermitted electrical work that violates city building codes. The previous owners hid these defects illegally, and now Derek is liable for all the problems as the current owner. The house will be condemned within 60 days, Patricia Williams added. Derek owes the city $48,000 in fines for the code violations, plus an estimated $200,000 to make the property habitable. But more importantly, I continued, your identity theft created a federal paper trail that led investigators to a much larger investigation of organized financial fraud. Your credit card scheme helped break open a case involving dozens of victims and millions of dollars in losses. Derek looked around the room desperately. This is entrapment. You set me up. I documented your crimes after you committed them, I corrected. You chose to steal my property, forge my signature, and commit identity theft. You chose to intercept my mail and sabotage my business relationships. You chose to systematically destroy my life for cruise money. Assistant District Attorney Rodriguez stood up. Derek Mitchell, you're facing federal charges that carry a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison. The credit card fraud alone is worth 20 years. Add the mail fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges, and you're looking at potentially 30 years in federal prison. Derek collapsed into his chair. I was just trying to help my marriage. Amanda was going to leave me. Amanda is divorcing you, Agent Chen informed him. She filed papers this morning and has moved back in with her parents. As federal agents led Derek away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't experienced in almost a year. Peace. 6 months later, Derek was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to multiple charges. Tom and Sarah Mitchell received 18 months for their role in the conspiracy. Derek's appeals were denied, and he'll be in prison until he's 44 years old. Amanda disappeared completely, leaving Derek to face the consequences alone. My parents eventually learned the truth about Derek's systematic lies and manipulation, though rebuilding trust took time and therapy. Some extended family members apologized once they understood how thoroughly Derek had deceived them, while others quietly distanced themselves from the entire situation. I used grandmother Dorothy's inheritance to rebuild my consulting business in North Carolina, where I now specialize in helping small businesses protect themselves against financial fraud. My new house is modest but entirely mine, with a garden where I grow vegetables and a workshop where I restore antique furniture as a hobby. The most important lesson I learned is that sometimes the only way to defeat someone who will destroy you is to let them think they're winning while you build something they can't touch. Family isn't about blood relationships or shared genetics. Family is about people who want you to succeed, not fail. Derek spent 2 years planning my destruction, but he never understood that the sister he was trying to defeat had been watching him just as carefully. He assumed I was naive and trusting, but I was actually gathering evidence and building protection he never suspected. Some people ask if I feel sorry for Derek, spending his 40s in federal prison. The answer is no. Derek had every opportunity to build his own success instead of stealing mine. He chose to destroy someone who loved him, instead of doing the work to earn what he wanted. Those choices have consequences, and Derek is experiencing exactly the consequences he earned. The house Derek thought was his dream home was condemned 6 months after his arrest. It sits empty now, a monument to what happens when greed and entitlement replace integrity and hard work. True family supports your success and celebrates your achievements. True family doesn't steal your dreams to fund their own. And when someone shows you they're willing to destroy your life for their convenience, believe them the first time and protect yourself accordingly. I hope my story helps anyone dealing with family members who mistake love for unlimited access to your resources. Set boundaries, protect your assets, and never underestimate how far some people will go when they decide you have too much and they have too little. What's your experience with family members who crossed lines they should never have crossed? Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and maintaining family relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding justice. Don't forget to share this with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. Thank you for listening. And remember that your worth isn't determined by people who can't appreciate your value.